So, you look at what's going on with Jadon Sancho, Simon. Rashford's had his problems. Sancho's hitting the headlines for the right reasons of late. Has he shown the path that Rashford now needs to take to earn his place back in the side, do you think?
Which is apply himself.
Right.
I mean, a lot of criticism has been made, and we're not privy to what's going on behind the scenes, what's going on in his personal life, but there is a deterioration. I do think that for whatever reason, there is this desire to elevate British players up to a certain level that sometimes their abilities aren't actually at. And he burst on the scene. You know, he demanded and commanded headlines at a time, you know, I think Louis van Gaal put him in the side. They were a very pedestrian side to watch, and he came on, was very exciting and looked like the next generation of the class of 92 sort of mentality. And of course, with great stardom and awareness comes people's challenges outside of the game, so we don't know what's happening there. Jadon Sancho has not set the world on fire. He's played okay for the last 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
And there have been times during those games when he could have done a lot better. I'm not sure he's a blueprint. I look at United ad infinitum and say there's lots of questions that could be asked and answered about the bulk of that playing squad from Harry Maguire upwards in terms of who's doing what, when and how. But Rashford is, of course, the focus of this particular question. And somehow or another, he was poor again against Spurs, running into cul-de-sacs, not doing anything with the ball, no particular outcomes, and no real seeming belief in what he was doing. Ranić, if he's going to play him and try and get him to play through this, there's an argument to be said. If you want to get good players to come through bad patches, you continue to patronise them because you give them the confidence. Some other people would say you take them out, rest them, get them together psychologically so they can come back refreshed. Whichever way you've got to do something has got to give with this situation with Rashford. I take it back to the currency of Man United for the 3 years where it's been an easy-ozy mentality, which was compounded and exacerbated by Rashford being allowed to come back from the Euro Championships, having not featured that much in the Euro Championships, then go off and have a 2-week holiday, then come back from his holiday and then have an operation. And that all seemed to me a bit backside about face. Get yourself fit, get yourself back into the fold and get yourself firing on all cylinders for your club.
Yeah.
And it seems
and
to
then
me
earn your break.
But the environment seemed to be like, you know, the expectation level of players was the wrong balance. You're the one lucky to play for the club, not the club isn't lucky to have you.
Right.
Let's get the perspective into balance.
I must admit, I held my breath yesterday because, was it tongue-in-cheek or you really were agreeing with Gary Neville on
Yeah, I do agree with a lot
Twitter?
what Gary says.
Because
He's absolutely right in what he said.
Gary came out, regards Rashford yesterday, and said, 1, a failure for United's football department if he leaves. 2,
absolutely right.
A very poor look for Marcus Rashford if he can't get his form right to break into this team.
And that's true too.
And 3, Marcus Rashford and the team would be naive if they think his off-pitch voice will carry without the Manchester United badge.
I mean, that's debatable. I mean, I saw Sanjay Banderi from Kick It Out talking about the Generation Z and how they actually identify with individuals rather than entities, and he disputed that particular argument. I think you cannot ignore the rapper that is Manchester United. Marcus Rashford is not Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo can supersede Manchester United.
Yeah.
Marcus Rashford cannot.
Yeah.
And irrespective of how much of a hero he's been off the pitch, the core product, we love what he's done off the pitch. Now can we have some more on the pitch, please?
Yeah. Can
Can we have what you're paid for? Can we have what's put you in a position where you can be an influencer off the pitch? Can we have you focused on doing what you're doing? This is probably one of the first real bumps in the road, and what Gary Neville is saying is absolutely right. All right, son, right? It is a failure for Man United's coaching staff if they don't get from him, but it's also a failure from the player if he thinks somewhere else is going to be better suited for him than Man United and overcoming it. If you want to leave Man United, it's because you've done really well at Manchester United, you're doing really well, and someone plucks you out of Manchester United like Real Madrid, who you can't resist the lure of.
Right.
Not because you can't get your act together at Manchester United.
Yeah.
The flip side of the argument is that there is this, if you put someone at a position that they're not really at and then judge them by those standards, then they're always going to come short. Marcus Rashford is not... How do
you mean? Who's in that position?
Well, Rashford has been elevated to a position of greatness, and expectation based upon that greatness is unjust because he's a good player. You have to be a good player to come through Manchester United's academy, get into their first team. But he's not a world beater. He's a good player. He's a good domestic, on the cusp of being a good international footballer. He doesn't score enough goals. He doesn't do enough off the ball. So when we talk about players that are at a world level, I don't think Marcus Rashford gets into that category. So with that in mind, we mustn't judge him by standards that he's not at, and then castigate him for not achieving standards that are only in our mind's eye,
right,
rather than the reality of his actual performances.
But you agree with Gary when he says a failure for United's football department if he leaves. If he leaves, surely that's a failure for Rashford.
It's a failure. Every time you employ a manager, right, and then you fire him for not doing his job, it's a failure on the owner for employing the manager, not getting from the manager what you employed him for. Every time a manager buys a player and then goes, he's not good enough, I need another one for the butter mounting of players that I need to make a team successful, it's a failure on the manager not getting from the player the thing that he thought he could get from him when he signed him in the first place. And of course, if Man United have got him in the building under their regime and they can't control the destiny of this player back to a level of attainment which takes the pressure and the attention off him, then of course it's a failing. And then ask yourself a question. Is the coaching regime at Manchester United best in class? And the answer is no, and it's always been no. And we hear people like Trevor Sinclair rocking in here, talking about Michael Carrick and people like that. It makes you fall off your chair with laughter. They're good guys, good footballers, but they're not the best coaches in the world. So here we are, is Marcus Rashford needs clear line, blue sky thinking about how he's going to get out of this current funk.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got the best coaching, Gary's right to point out it's a failing in the coaching, because why would you lose Rashford? Why would you lose someone that's been in a position, they've been at a certain level, they're not there anymore, because your coaching regime isn't good enough and it's a failure on Manchester United? Of course, it's a failure on the player as well, because he's the one that loses the opportunity just as much. Because if you walk out of Man United, where else do you go?
Does it amaze you, Simon?
More winning clubs, but no one's going to sign Rashford. Who's going to sign Rashford? Man City?
Does it amaze you that the football department at Manchester United clearly is not best in class?
Well, no, because if you close your eyes... Oh no, you open them wide, unless of course you're an MMA fighter, then you take them out of your eyes, take them out of your head. Right? But then if you open your eyes and you look at it, how could you put Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in to manage your football club to try and bridge the gap between Guardiola, Klopp, and whoever else is in the top ends of the division? So then why would you expect? That's the visible part, right? That's the bit you can see. That's the top of the iceberg. The success part. The crap in an iceberg is beneath the water that you don't see. So if you can see the top of the pyramid looking crap, imagine what the bottom's going to look like, because that's beneath the radar. So what do you expect? The best in class behind the scenes? No, it's not surprising to me that there was trouble at the mill. There's trouble at the ranch of Man United because they haven't done things properly.
Icebergs apart, do you see Rashford starting next season at United?
Well, not unless... Well, I would like to think that Rashford's going to pull himself together. I would like to think that the manager is going to have some influence over the direction of travel that this player's going on, because there was one half of a game recently, was it Aston Villa or somewhere against, Rashford started really bright, and the second half he came out like impending doom. It was like watching sackcloth and ashes, because the whole thing had fallen off around him.
And this is a World Cup year.
And this is a World Cup year. So he's got to put himself together. And Gary Neville's absolutely right.
Oh, right.
Edge that one in stone.
No, I know. I was surprised. But do you know what? It was also nice to see.
What? I can agree with Gary Neville.
Yes, old Barrack Room lawyer. I
agree with him a lot.
It's 11:15.
White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.